The air inside the glass tower felt colder than the bright morning outside. It wasn't the climate control. It was the weight of unspoken judgments. A confident black woman named Clara Jameson entered through the revolving doors of Arcturus Systems, one of the most talked-about tech companies in the country. She was 46 years old, seasoned by decades of battles in boardrooms where her presence had always been questioned, her competence constantly tested. But this morning, her purpose carried more weight than ever. She wasn't here to prove herself. She was here to decide whether this company would receive a $2 billion investment. From the outside, Arcturus looked like a monument to success. Walls of steel and mirrored glass stretched toward the sky, reflecting ambition, progress, and wealth. Inside, the lobby gleamed with polished stone floors and curated artwork. Yet Clara's eyes saw past the shine. Years of experience taught her that the surface rarely told the truth. Cultures hid their flaws in shadows, not spotlights. She stepped to the reception desk where a young woman named Lena greeted her with a professional smile. That smile flickered as soon as Clara gave her name. "I'm here for my 10 o'clock with Richard Hale," Clara said evenly. Lena's eyebrows lifted, her polite expression faltered. "Are you sure? Administrative applicants usually meet with HR on the 3rd floor." Clara held her gaze, calm and unshaken. "My appointment is with Mr. Hale directly. Please check again. The name is Clara Jameson." Reluctantly, Lena searched her screen. After an awkward pause, she gestured toward a side waiting area. Not the sleek lounge with its leather chairs and complimentary espresso machine, but a smaller corner with stiff seats where junior applicants sat. Clara noticed the distinction but didn't comment. She walked there gracefully, her silence sharper than any protest. As she waited, she observed everything. The steady stream of employees filing through security. Most of them were men. Most were white. Conversations dropped to whispers when eyes flicked toward her. 45 minutes passed, not a minute less. When finally an assistant arrived to collect her, it wasn't to the executive boardroom, but a windowless side room with bland furniture and no natural light. Richard Hale, the CEO of Arcturus, barely looked up from his phone when she entered. His suit was expensive, his cufflinks gold, his attention elsewhere. 3 other executives sat around him, all white men in nearly identical gray suits. Their casual smirks, the bored tapping of a pen, the yawn one stifled. Clara read it, all as if it were printed text. She had seen this pattern before. Hale gestured vaguely toward the chair across from him. "So, you're here about some diversity program, I assume?" His tone made it clear. This was an obligation to endure, not a meeting between equals. Calmly, Clara set her leather portfolio on the table. "I'm here to discuss potential investment opportunities." One of the executives exchanged a glance with another, amused. Hale leaned back, still skeptical. "Investment," he repeated, drawing the word out like it didn't belong to her. He clicked a remote, pulling up a presentation full of cartoonish graphics and oversimplified slides. "We're developing cutting-edge AI solutions for enterprise clients," he said with exaggerated slowness. Then, after explaining the basics of what an algorithm was, he paused with a condescending smile. "Are you following so far?" Behind him, 2 of his men chuckled under their breath. Clara leaned forward slightly, her tone steady. "Your prospectus mentioned a proprietary deep learning architecture. How does it compare to conventional transformer models in terms of inference? Latency when scaled for deployment?" Hale froze. His fingers fumbled on the remote. "Well, it's rather technical. Perhaps my CTO could explain the complicated stuff later." She continued without missing a beat. "I also noticed a 22% drop in reported R&D spending in Q2. Yet your documents claim expanded research initiatives. Can you explain the discrepancy?" Silence. The executives shifted uncomfortably. Hale's jaw tightened. He skipped slides hastily, muttering about appropriate topics. "Let's focus on diversity instead. Rome wasn't built in a day, you know." The meeting dragged on, full of slights. Yet Clara remained calm, recording each one in her mind. Every delay, Every dismissal, every word meant to reduce her presence to something small. And then came the moment. A new executive entered the room, a man in a tailored navy suit. Hale sprang to his feet, his smile finally genuine. He reached out, clasped the man's hand firmly, and turned back toward Clara. His voice carried through the room like a final insult. "I don't shake hands with staff." The air went still. Some executives looked away, ashamed but silent. Others smirked, complicit. Clara's expression never faltered. She simply closed her portfolio with deliberate care, the soft snap of leather echoing louder than his insult. What none of them knew, not yet, was that Clara Jameson was no staff member. She was the decision-maker holding the future of their company in her steady hands, and she had just seen everything she needed to see. The room still held the sting of the words. "I don't shake hands with staff." Clara closed her portfolio slowly. The sound was soft and final. She looked at Richard Hale without blinking, then she reached for her phone and typed a single word to her team. "Go." "Excuse me for a moment," she said calmly. "I need to step out." Hale waved her off as if she were background. The executives went back to light jokes and golf stories. In the hallway, Clara walked with even steps. No rush, no raised voice. She found the nearest restroom, locked a stall, and let herself take 3 steady breaths. Not to calm down, to focus. She dialed a number. "Ben," she said when her CFO answered. "Phase 1. "We're set," he replied. "Signals to analysts will begin in minutes. Documentation is ready. The team is parked 2 blocks away." "Keep it subtle," Clara said. "Nothing loud. Not yet. Let it look organic. Prepare the full package. I recorded everything." Texas is a one-party consent state. We are covered. "Understood," Ben said. "We move on your word." Clara ended the call and looked in the mirror. The woman looking back had spent 20 years in rooms like this. Rooms that smiled while counting her out. Rooms that treated her as an exception instead of a peer. Today would not be one of those days. She adjusted a sleeve. Then she walked back to the meeting. The energy had shifted. 2 executives were looking at their phones. A laptop on the table showed a stock ticker in the corner of the screen. "Is something wrong?" Clara asked, mild as ever. "Nothing to do with you," Hale said. "Just market noise." He still didn't say her last name. He still didn't ask a real question. Clara stood. "Mr. Hale, one final request. I would like a short meeting with you alone." He hesitated, annoyed, then nodded. "Fine. Let's make it quick." He led her down the hall to his office. Glass walls, awards lined up like trophies, photos, with mayors and celebrities. Not a single image of a woman or a person of color in leadership on the display wall. Clara stayed standing. Her voice stayed level. "I was kept waiting for 45 minutes, she began. "I was sent to a side area while others were offered the VIP lounge. I was given a childish overview of basic concepts. I was asked if I could keep up. I was cut off whenever I brought up finance. I was called only by my first name. I was told my value was to speak as a token. Finally, you refused a handshake, saying you do not shake hands with staff." Hale lifted a hand to interrupt. Clara continued. "I have recorded our entire interaction. This is legal here. If I proceed, the record will show a pattern, not a single moment. A pattern." Hale's phone buzzed, then buzzed again. The screen flashed with urgent tags from shareholders. Another call came in. He silenced it. He tried to smile. "Let's not escalate," he said. "I am sure we can find a path that works for both sides." Clara watched him. No anger, only clarity. "I already did," she said. His computer chimed. He glanced at a live chart. The color left his face. "What do you mean down 1%?" he muttered into a quick call. "There is no news." He hung up, pulled up a browser, and typed her name. For the first time since she walked into His building, he really looked at the person in front of him. Search results filled the screen. Clara Jameson, founder of Jameson Equity Group. Assets under management above 50 billion. Known for strict culture screens. Known for pulling out of toxic leadership. Known for moving markets. Hale stood. The arrogance drained away. He came, around the desk too fast. "Ms. Jameson," he said, voice suddenly careful, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. If I had known who you were—" "There is no misunderstanding," Clara said. "You were very clear about who you thought I was." She moved toward the door. He stepped in front of it. "Please," he said, "we can settle this privately." People in the hallway were watching now, phones in their hands. Security stood a little straighter. Hale caught himself and moved aside. Clara left the office with her same even steps. She passed the open boardroom, where men had laughed freely an hour ago. She passed the VIP lounge where two visitors still sipped coffee. She reached the lobby. On the big monitor, Arcturus Systems flashed red. Down 2%, then 3%. The number ticked lower with each breath. Whispers spread through the floor like a current. "Who is she? Search her." "Jameson Equity, look." Clara walked through the revolving doors and into the sun. A dark sedan waited at the curb. She stepped in. Inside, her team had laptops open with charts and dashboards. Ben sat in the back. "Our first call's landed," he said. "No public statement. Just concern about leadership fitness and risk controls. That was enough for a dip. If we publish, the drop will deepen." "Hold publication," Clara said. "Prepare the full due diligence file. Transcribe today with timestamps. Include industry stats for context. We will not take easy shots. We will be precise." A portfolio was handed to her. Inside were notes from the entire morning. Names, comments, timings, cross-references. It was not anger on the page. It was evidence. "This is not about one insult," Clara said. "It is about how the room was built. We change the room or we take our money elsewhere." Back upstairs, the boardroom was no longer relaxed. The assistant who had waved her to the side area now sprinted between offices with a tablet clutched in both hands. In the conference room, Richard Hale barked orders that landed without force. "What do you mean we do not have a proper brief?" he snapped. His assistant swallowed. "The meeting was listed as C. Jameson. You said it was a diversity check-in. We did not pull a full bio." Another executive, James Cole, spoke low and fast. "We find something on her. Everyone has something. We push it to friendly outlets. We put pressure on her team. She backs off." Hale stared at the sliding stock chart. His voice came back thin. "Do it." In the car, Ben pointed at a new line on the graph. "Down 4, now 5. "Stay steady," Clara said. "We do not gloat. We do not shout. We document, and we act." Her phone vibrated. A message from legal. Confirmed. The recording was clean. The chain of custody was clean. The jurisdiction was clear. "Next step," Ben said. Clara looked out. At the tower of glass where she had been measured and dismissed. Then she looked at her team. Calm faces, ready hands. "Draft a statement about our investment standards," she said. "No names, no threats, clear principles. Circulate it after review, and set a private meeting for tomorrow morning. Invite him. Allow one attorney." Ben nodded. "They will feel that." In the lobby of Arcturus, the big monitor flashed again. Down 7. Employees gathered in clusters. Searches for Jameson Equity spiked on company Wi-Fi. Articles popped up on screens, case studies, prior exits, quiet exits that turned loud when ignored. In the boardroom, phones rang without pause. The chair of the board demanded a plan. The PR lead offered a bland line about commitment and progress. No one believed it. Hale tried calling Clara's firm. "Jameson Equity Group," the assistant answered. "This is Richard Hale. I need to speak with Clara at once." "I am sorry," the voice said, calm and clear. "Ms. Jameson takes calls from respectful potential partners. Would you like to leave a message?" The call ended. Silence filled. The boardroom. Then every screen lit up with the same alert. An investing coalition is reviewing all potential placements with a new standard. Firms without measurable inclusive cultures may be excluded. The notice did not mention Arcturus by name. It did not need to. On Richard Hale's calendar, a new event appeared. Final investment decision. Tomorrow, 9 in the morning. You may bring one attorney. Clara closed her eyes for a breath as the car pulled into traffic. The city slid past, in clean lines. Tomorrow would not be about wounded pride. It would be about standards. It would be about who gets to build and who gets pushed out of the room. And Richard Hale had one night to decide which side he wanted to stand on. Dawn broke over the city with a restless kind of energy. Inside the glass tower of Arcturus Systems, the executive floor was already in chaos. Phones rang without pause. Messages from investors piled into inboxes, urgent and sharp. The stock had closed down 7%, wiping hundreds of millions in market value overnight. Richard Hale paced, his office like a caged animal. His suit jacket was gone, his tie loosened, but the arrogance still clung to him like a second skin. His attorney sat nearby, tablet in hand, offering advice he didn't want to hear. Richard, the board is alarmed. You need to prepare an apology. At least a gesture of contrition. Apology? Hale snapped. To her? To them? I built this company. His voice cracked against the truth he couldn't admit. The market didn't care who had built it. The market had already chosen sides. In the boardroom, the directors whispered among themselves. A younger member leaned forward, tapping on his phone. This isn't just about one meeting. Look, stories are surfacing. Anonymous posts from employees. Complaints buried in HR. Hashtags are trending. Arcturus toxic. The words hung heavy. No one said them aloud, but all of them knew. Denial would not make this storm pass. Across town, Clara Jameson sat with her team in the understated elegance of her firm's headquarters. The building didn't scream wealth. It didn't need to. Influence hummed in the quiet efficiency of the people moving through its halls. Her core team gathered around a polished oak table. Ben, her CFO, placed a thick binder before her. Full documentation, he said. Yesterday's meeting, every word, every gesture, cross-referenced with industry data. It's airtight. Clara flipped through the pages. Photos of Arcturus's leadership team, statistics on their hiring practices, comparisons with competitors who were already shifting toward inclusion. Every line of evidence told the same story. Culture wasn't a footnote at Arcturus. It was a liability. One junior associate hesitated before speaking. Clara, Arcturus employs thousands. If we pull support, it's not just Hale who suffers. It's everyone under him. Clara listened, her face calm but thoughtful. I know, she said softly. But systemic change requires consequences. For decades, leaders like him believed there was no cost to arrogance, no cost to exclusion. They were wrong. Money is the only language companies like this understand. If we speak clearly, others will listen. Ben added, We've already drafted a coalition statement with 3 other firms. It outlines cultural standards as part of investment due diligence. If Arcturus doesn't comply, the boycott could expand. They'd face an investor wall, not just us. Clara closed the binder. Send the draft after review. No threats, no names, just principles. Let the market make the connection. By mid-morning, the press had caught the scent. Financial anchors speculated on live television. Arcturus Systems fell sharply yesterday, one reported, with whispers that a major investor witnessed concerning behavior from CEO Richard Hale. No confirmation, yet, but markets are clearly spooked. Inside Arcturus, the board's alarm grew. Shareholders called for emergency meetings. The PR team scrambled to draft statements about diversity and inclusion. Hollow words, too late. Richard Hale slammed a hand on the table. We'll spin it as a misunderstanding. We'll make her look like an activist with an agenda. One director finally spoke up, his voice low but firm. Richard, the problem isn't her agenda. The problem is you. The silence that followed was colder than any winter wind. Meanwhile, Clara prepared for the next move. A meeting had been scheduled for the following morning. Richard Hale was invited, with one condition: he could bring a single attorney. Her team finalized seating charts, briefing books, and strategy notes. This was no longer just about Arcturus. It was about setting a precedent. Clara knew every detail mattered. She stood by the window of her office as the sun slid west, casting long shadows across the skyline. Somewhere out there, Richard Hale was scrambling to hold his empire together. Tomorrow he would sit across from her, and for the first time he would have to face the truth he had tried to laugh away. The market had spoken, and the market was on her side. The next morning, tension hung thick in the glass corridors of Arcturus Systems. Richard Hale arrived at the headquarters of Jameson Equity Group precisely at 9 o'clock, his attorney close behind. For once there was no entourage, no press team, no assistants to shield him. Just the man who had mocked, dismissed, and underestimated, now walking into enemy territory. The reception desk greeted him with polite professionalism, but no warmth. He was asked to wait. 10 minutes passed, then 20. By the time 45 minutes had stretched into an hour, Hale understood. The same humiliation he had inflicted yesterday was being mirrored back at him, measure for measure. Finally, a staff member opened the door. "This way, Mr. Hale." He entered a conference room that was nothing like the small windowless box he had forced Clara into. This room was vast. A long mahogany table stretched toward the skyline, and seated around it were more than just Clara's team. Representatives from 3 other major investment firms sat there as well, faces sharp with interest. The air crackled with power, but none of it belonged to Richard Hale. At the head of the table sat Clara Jameson, now dressed in a tailored suit that radiated authority without excess. She didn't stand. She didn't smile. She simply looked at him, calm and steady. "Mr. Hale," she said, voice measured, "please take a seat." He obeyed, but not without trying to reclaim the stage. "Ms. Jameson, I'd like to start by apologizing for any misunderstandings during your visit yesterday. Arcturus values diversity and—" "This isn't about misunderstandings," Clara cut in, her tone slicing through his words like glass. "This is about accountability." She opened a folder before her and slid a thick binder across the table. Hale glanced at it. His attorney shifted uneasily beside him. Inside were employee testimonies, pay gap statistics, promotion records, and cultural audits, all of it painting the same bleak picture. "How did you even get these documents?" Hale demanded. "Former employees," Clara replied evenly, "legally permitted to speak to potential investors conducting due diligence. Your legal team should have explained that exception to you." One of the other investors leaned forward. "We've been working with Jameson Equity on a new standard. Corporate culture will now be assessed alongside financials before capital is deployed. Arcturus was our test case. Ms. Jameson volunteered to lead the evaluation personally." Hale froze. It hit him all at once. Clara had never been seeking his validation. She had been deciding whether he deserved hers. "This is reverse discrimination," Hale blurted, desperation creeping in. "You're targeting me because I'm a white male CEO." Clara didn't flinch. Instead, she pressed a button on a small device. Hale's own voice filled the room, crystal clear. "I don't shake hands with staff." The recording rolled on, replaying his patronizing remarks, his dismissals, his smirks. Each word cut away the last shreds of credibility he clung to. When the audio stopped, the silence was suffocating. "What do you want?" Hale finally muttered, his bravado gone. Clara slid another document across the table. He expected a hostile takeover at a fire sale price. Instead, it was a mandate, a list of required changes to corporate governance, hiring practices, executive, accountability, and culture audits tied directly to compensation. "This is not a negotiation," Clara said, her voice calm but unyielding. "This is the only path forward if Arcturus wants to avoid complete investor boycott." Hale stared at the paper. His hand shook as he reached for it. Around him, the coalition of investors sat in perfect unity. For the first time in his career, Richard Hale realized he wasn't the one with power, and for the first time Clara Jameson made it clear she wasn't here to play by his rules. She was here to change them. The fallout came faster than even Richard Hale could have imagined. By the time he returned to Arcturus headquarters that afternoon, the board of directors was already gathered without him. Their faces were grim, their voices sharp. What had been an empire of certainty now trembled on the edge of collapse. The stock had fallen 12% in a single day. Shareholders were demanding answers. Analysts were whispering about toxic culture and reckless leadership. And for the first time in years, the board didn't look at Hale with admiration. They looked at him with doubt. Patricia Lane, the CFO, sat with folded arms, her voice cold. Our investors no longer trust us. That isn't market noise. That is leadership failure. Hale's longtime ally, James Cole, tried to deflect. This is manufactured outrage. She's pulling strings to embarrass us. If we hold firm, this will blow over. Patricia's reply was like steel. We've been burying complaints for years. HR reports that never reached the board. Discrimination settlements hidden under NDAs. This isn't manufactured. It's exposed. The board murmured in agreement. Hale felt the walls closing in. His power, once absolute, was slipping through his fingers. Outside those walls, the noise grew louder. Employees whispered in hallways, some emboldened, others fearful. Anonymous posts flooded social media. Stories poured out. Women told to tone down their ambition. Black engineers sidelined to administrative tasks. Promotions handed out like favors to golfing buddies. A hashtag trended globally. Arcturus toxic. On television, a financial anchor reported with barely concealed intrigue. Sources suggest the decline at Arcturus is tied to an investor walkout led by Jameson Equity Group. While no official statements name the company, the timing leaves little doubt. Arcturus may be the first test case of a new standard, one that ties investment directly to corporate culture. The market wasn't just punishing numbers, it was punishing behavior. In private, Hale scrambled. He called old allies, begging for support. Some answered with silence, others with clipped excuses. His attorney urged caution, warning that denial would only deepen exposure. Alone in his office, Hale stared at his reflection. His mind clung to old habits. He practiced apologies in the mirror, phrases crafted to sound sincere while admitting nothing. If anything I said was misinterpreted, if anyone took offense where none was intended. But every time the image staring back at him looked less like a leader and more like a man cornered by his own arrogance. Meanwhile, Clara Jameson watched the storm from the quiet order of her firm. Her team tracked every data point, stock, dips, trending posts, whispers from inside Arcturus. Ben placed new analytics before her. No public announcement from us, yet the market assumes. Imagine what happens when we go public. Clara turned the page of the report, her voice steady. We won't shout. We won't threaten. We will hold them to standards. If they change, they earn their future. If they don't, they collapse under their own weight. Her words carried no anger, no triumph, only clarity. That evening, an alert reached every major investor's desk. Johnson Equity Group and 3 allied firms released a joint statement. We are reconsidering all investments in companies that fail to demonstrate inclusive and accountable leadership cultures. Financial growth cannot excuse systemic exclusion. Future capital will follow both numbers and values. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew. Inside Arcturus, Richard Hale's phone buzzed with a calendar invitation. Final decision. Jameson Equity Group. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. One attorney permitted. The board demanded he attend. Shareholders demanded explanations. Employees watched with growing anticipation, and Clara Jameson, calm as ever, prepared for the next day. The day the final balance of power would be decided. The next morning, all eyes were on Jameson Equity Group. The financial press swarmed. The lobby. Cameras clicked as Richard Hale arrived, stripped of his entourage, his only shield a nervous attorney clutching a briefcase. He was led into the conference room where Clara Jameson waited, calm as stone at the head of the long table. Around her sat not just her own team but representatives from allied investment firms, their combined capital towering over anything Hale could imagine. "Mr. Hale," Clara said, not rising. "Sit." He obeyed, his hands tight against the leather armrest. For the first time in his career, he wasn't in command of the room. Hale tried once more to play his old game. "I want to apologize for any words taken out of context. Arcturus has always valued merit. If anyone misunderstood my intent," Clara pressed a button. His recorded voice filled the room again, cruel and unmistakable. "I don't shake hands with staff." The playback ended. Silence burned hotter than fire. "What you call misunderstandings," Clara said, "we call evidence. You had power, Mr. Hale, and you used it to diminish others. Today that choice has a cost." She slid a document across the table. It wasn't an offer. It was a mandate. Governance reforms, hiring overhauls, transparent pay scales, promotion pipelines tied to measurable equity, independent cultural audits with results published publicly. "This," Clara said, "is not a suggestion. It is the only path forward. Refuse, and you face complete investor withdrawal." Hale's attorney whispered frantic advice. Hale ignored, and he could see it in their faces. The investors were united. His empire wasn't being questioned, it was being sentenced. By afternoon, the Arcturus board convened an emergency vote. For the first time, Hale wasn't invited into the room. Patricia Lane, steady and sharp, presented the mandate from Jameson Equity. "We have 3 options," she said. "Resist and lose everything. Pretend change and be exposed again. Or commit, fully and transparently, to transformation." The directors voted, 11-2. Hale was removed permanently. Patricia was appointed interim CEO. The press release was blunt. Leadership inconsistent with company values had been replaced. The markets responded instantly. The freefall stopped. The stock began to stabilize. The message was clear. Money trusted change more than it trusted Hale. Within days, other companies called emergency meetings. Boards asked the same question: what if we're next? HR departments dusted off diversity plans once treated as window dressing. Venture capital firms quietly requested culture reports alongside financials. The industry felt the shift. What Clara had done wasn't just about Arcturus. It was about setting a standard no one could ignore. For Richard Hale, the fall was brutal. News outlets unearthed old discrimination complaints. Anonymous employees spoke freely now that NDAs couldn't shield him. His attempts to paint himself as a victim fell flat. At a formal hearing, regulators barred him from serving as an officer in any public company for 10 years. Investors blacklisted him. Former allies cut ties overnight. For a man who once measured himself by who shook his hand, the silence around him was deafening. Clara, meanwhile, refused to celebrate too loudly. She knew this wasn't about one man. It was about dismantling the system that had kept men like Hale safe for too long. She mentored young women and men of color, teaching them that patience and strategy could change industries. She told them what she had learned through every slight, every insult. Don't waste power proving your worth to those who refuse to see it. Build your own table, then decide who gets to sit. Her coalition of firms launched the Jameson Standard, a rigorous certification tying capital to culture. Companies scrambled to meet it, markets adapted to it, and slowly, the playing field shifted. Months later, at a global finance summit, Clara stood at the center of a packed ballroom. Behind her, screens displayed the numbers. Companies adopting the new standards, stock performance rising with diversity, profits climbing where inclusion thrived. She spoke not with triumph, but with quiet finality. True power isn't measured by who you can dismiss, but by who you choose to elevate. Companies that refuse to learn this will fall. Those who embrace it will lead the future. The applause shook the walls. And somewhere, far from that stage, Richard Hale sat alone, a man who once thought power was in the hand he refused to shake. now living proof of what happens when arrogance meets accountability. The story wasn't just about his downfall. It was about a new beginning,